All right, let's get back into his testimony. Hank is going to get
Jurors, I apologize that
cooked on
took
this
so
one.
long, but it was necessary to do rather than sending you out. So, sure.
She said so. Suck it up. Man, that was insane.
Thank you. Tori, can you give me a couple of these? Okay.
Wow.
Dr. Rentschler, my eyes aren't good enough to see the upper right-hand corner. What slide number is this? That's
Number 12.
Number 12, thank you. Did you look at these photographs and consider these photographs in furtherance of your ultimate conclusion?
I did, yes, sir.
Can we move to slide 13, please? Did you also look at and consider these photographs in coming to your ultimate conclusion?
I did, yes.
Can we move to slide 14, please? Did you look at and consider these photographs in coming to your conclusions and opinions regarding
I did.
this case?
Yes, sir.
Can you move from slide 14 over to slide 18, please?
Can I switch through real quick?
Sure.
Yep. So we 18.
Let's go to 18. What are we looking at in slide 18?
So this is Mr. O'Keefe's right arm at autopsy, and they're holding up a ruler to demonstrate the size and dimensions of the abrasions.
And what are the yellow indicators?
Those are indicators I added based on the length of the ruler to show the approximate size, length, and width of those abrasions.
Was it important in your biomechanical analysis to measure and denote all the injuries?
It was, yes.
Did you actually count the number of injuries on Mr. O'Keefe's arm?
I did, yes.
How many injuries did he have? How many distinct and separate injuries did Mr. O'Keefe's arm present?
Conservatively, I counted 36 different superficial abrasions on his right arm.
And did you go through all the photographs in an effort to count and distinguish one abrasion and one defect on his skin from another?
I did, yes, sir.
And you said conservatively 36 separate abrasions, correct?
That's correct.
What does that mean in terms of the mechanism that you would expect to cause that abrasion?
Well, you need 36 different points of contact to get through the sweatshirt and get to the skin to actually cause abrasion to the skin. 36 different separate points of contact to the skin.
How many defects, remind us, how many defects were noted by the crime lab in Mr. O'Keefe's right sleeve?
9 defects.
Wow.
Can you scroll to slide 22 quickly, please? What is this?
This is a slide, again, from Aperture, from their PowerPoint. It's the only slide, the only photo, the only indication of the hoodie that I found in their analysis. And it also has pictures showing
garbage.
Looks like they try to line up the top of that taillight cover.
Sustained.
Do you see there's some sort of marking on that lower left photograph with some yellow lines?
I do, yes.
How did you analyze that marking?
I analyzed that. It goes through the part of the taillight cover and then goes through part of the upper arm of the surrogate.
And there's a parallel line to it a little bit in a V shape. There's a parallel line below it. How did you analyze that line?
I analyzed that as apparently showing that the area of the taillight.
So not apparently. What did you
How did you
analyze?
interpret that?
I interpreted that represents that area of the tail light corresponds to the area of the upper arm.
And there's a red dotted line around the tail light, correct?
Correct.
How did you interpret what that represents?
That was the part of the tail light that fractured.
Did you put any of these lines on there, or are these all from aperture?
These are all from aperture. I did not put any of those on there.
You see the small, it's horizontal, I'm sorry, it's vertical photograph of Mr. O'Keefe's arm?
I do, yes.
Did you note anywhere in the aperture report a denotation of the number of abrasions, counting the number of abrasions on Mr. O'Keefe's arm?
There's no denotation, no indication that the number of abrasions were ever counted. No, sir.
Ultimately, based on your review of
Wow.
all of your testing, did you come to an opinion or a conclusion as to whether or not the abrasions on Mr. O'Keefe's arm are consistent with striking the right rear taillight of the Lexus?
I did, yes.
And what is that conclusion?
That they're inconsistent with striking the taillight or being produced as a result of contact with the taillight.
Why did you come to that conclusion?
There's a number of reasons that I came to. First of all, the abrasions, the numbers don't correspond to the number of holes or...
Sustained.
Did you consider, without counting the number of abrasions and the number of holes, did you consider the abrasions?
I did, yes.
Did you consider the sweatshirt?
I did.
Was that an important part of your analysis?
It was, yes.
What else did you consider?
I considered that it was not possible to line up 36 different abrasions with
So I'm going to strike that answer, ask it differently.
Your Honor, if he could finish his answer. He was about to say contact with the taillight.
Yep, so ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
Sure.
What?
What did the 36 abrasions, conservatively, and their interaction with the taillight have to do with your ultimate opinion and conclusion?
Well, that you have to, if those abrasions came from contact with the taillight, you have to be able to correlate them and line them up with contact, 36 different contacts from the taillight.
And ultimately, based on your understanding of Aperture's review and the photographs that you saw, you were presuming, based on Aperture's testing, that Mr. O'Keefe was wearing that hoodie. Is that correct?
Sustained.
What was the condition? Let me ask it this way. There's a photograph in the Aperture report that we're looking at with blue paint on an arm, right?
Correct.
Is that your understanding, or did you test that Mr. O'Keefe could have been hit wearing short sleeves?
No.
What did you test? What was your presumption and assumption in your testing?
That he was wearing the hoodie that was found on him at the time.
With the 9 holes in the right sleeve?
With the 9 holes in the right sleeve.
Watch the form of the question, Mr. Jackson.
Sure. Let's go to the next slide, please.
Leading a little bit there.
What is this?
These are the top two and bottom right slide are from the Aperture PowerPoint.
How did you interpret the two photographs on the right, the parallel lines and the red lines in that slide?
The parallel lines correspond to an area of the fractured tail light, and then the red dotted line corresponds to an area of abrasions on Mr. O'Keefe's upper arm, and there's a red arrow pointing to part of the fractured tail light.
Can we go to the next slide, please? What are we looking at in this slide?
Again, this is the paint test. This is the only test that was conducted by Aperture to look at the tail light and the arm in this case, and the interaction between the two.
Did you note whether in all of Aperture's data that you reviewed, whether or not there was any measurements to determine whether the abrasions were consistent with contact with the Lexus?
I did. There were no measurements at all taken with respect to that test. No measurements with respect to where the contact happened on the car or on the arm itself. There was no indication of where that blue paint extended on the surrogate's arm, say from the wrist up to where the laceration or the abrasions would have occurred.
Is that important?
At
It's very
24 miles an hour.
Why?
Because you can't say that the area where the blue paint is corresponds to the area of the abrasions if you don't take measurements. If you just eyeball it, all you can say is by eyeballing it, it looks approximately the same. But that's not scientific. You can't come to an actual conclusion that where that paint covers the arm is where those abrasions actually were. They could lie outside, they could lie forward, they could lie above that painted area. You can't say with any scientific certainty that that area of paint corresponds to where the abrasions are.
Dang. He's cooking these dudes. Now, I know Hank is going to be into question, well, how can you determine that from just looking at the pictures with the scientific certainty? And I'm sure Dr. Rentschler will look into that and address that. But again, this is a BS test that looks like they did on YouTube. Crazy.
They could lie forward, they could lie above that painted area.
Crazy.
You can't say with any scientific certainty that that area of paint corresponds to where the abrasions are.
In this motion video and the still photograph to the left in slide 24, is that what we're on, 24?
We are, yes, sir.
What did you note with regard to the positioning of the surrogate's arm? I think that's Mr. Welcher. As it relates to the taillight and the back of the SUV.
Yes, the positioning of the arm in the photographs as well as the one test that was performed, the arm is approximately 90 degrees, level in line with the rear taillight of the vehicle. Did
you seek to do any testing approximating the positioning of the arm as you saw it, as you interpreted it in the aperture data?
I did, yes, sir.
What were you seeking to determine when you did your testing?
Well, if we want to determine whether the orientation and the position of the abrasions on the arm correspond to the taillight, you have to have the arm in the position that you claim it struck the taillight and then look at the abrasions. Because if you're looking at orientation and the direction of the abrasions, you can't look at how they exist with the arm. The only pictures of the arm of the abrasions are with Mr. O'Keefe's arm extended. But that's not how he would have had it according to the test. It would have been at a 90-degree angle.
Dr. Rentschler, were there any peer-reviewed articles cited in connection with Aperture's paint transfer test?
I did not see, I was not provided a single peer-reviewed article with respect to the paint test or any indication of any test or article looking at arm contact with the vehicle or a taillight cover.
Can we go to slide 25? What are we looking at in this slide?
So in this slide, the picture on the far left is the photographs provided from the autopsy in hospital with Mr. O'Keefe's right arm fully extended. Again, those are the only photographs we have.
What about the photograph in the middle and to the far right?
In the middle and the far right, what I did was actually take that arm and then rotate the forearm to put it in a position that it would be in as demonstrated by the paint test with the arm at approximately 90 degrees.
What was the import of this undertaking?
Well, if you look at the paint test and the way the arm's at 90 degrees and having the car come and essentially contact and push the arm out of the way, that's going to give you or tell you the directionality or the direction of the abrasions. Because if you have your arm at a right angle and the vehicle comes and pushes and slides against it on that forearm, you would expect those abrasions to be horizontal, to be in line with that forearm.
Are they?
They're not. You can see some of them are vertical, some of them are angled, some of them it's hard to tell what the directionality is. But
okay, so, well, that's not a problem though, because according to Dr. Welcher, I mean, the car could have went to the moon, right? Y'all remember him saying that? The car could have shot up into space. So technically, what could have happened was Karen could have backed up the car, hit him at one angle, and then she could have moved forward, even though the data won't show that. And then she could have backed up and hit him again. Or the car could have flew up into the air and then hit him at one angle and then hit him at another angle, according to Dr. Welcher. There's a scientific possibility that he was hit at multiple different angles at the same time. This is huge.
Because if you have your arm at a right angle and the vehicle comes and pushes and slides against it on that forearm, you would expect those abrasions to be horizontal, to be in line with that forearm.
Are they?
They're not. You can see some of them are vertical, some of them are angled, some of them it's hard to tell what the directionality is. But if your arm, again, is being struck and pushed this way, as it's pushed and as the car goes by, if this would occur in this manner, you would expect those abrasions to be horizontal in the direction that the vehicle is actually traveling.
When you say horizontal, do you mean horizontal from the elbow to the wrist?
Correct, or parallel, yes, with the forearm.
Can we go to slide 26, please? This is yet again the same video that we saw earlier.
That is correct. This is the paint test video, yes.
And what has to happen in order for the paint in this test to reach the upper forearm?
Well, in this case, to reach the upper forearm, there has to be contact between the forearm and the taillight cover.
Can we go to the next slide, please? What is this slide showing?
Look at
Again,
this.
this shows,
my
you can see on the
gosh.
right, I added arrows to kind of show the directionality of
This is
the different
huge,
abrasions.
guys.
And on the forearm, they simply do not line up with the type of kinematics or the type of motion shown in the paint test. Again, of the arm getting pushed out of the way and the car traveling past. If there were going to be abrasions
Case
from
closed.
the fractured glass as it moves along, again, it would be lengthwise parallel to the forearm.
If the arm was positioned
Wow.
as it was indicated in the paint test done by Aperture, would you expect to see this pattern of injuries on Mr. O'Keefe's arm if, in fact, it contacted the taillight and if, in fact, it was abraded based on the taillight?
You would not. You can't get, for instance, horizontal abrasions on the upper arm and somehow get vertical and angled abrasions on the forearm. The kinematics don't work out to actually produce those types of injuries.
Can we go to
This
the
is
next
amazing.
slide, please? What are we looking at in this slide?
So again, this is the paint transfer test, and it demonstrates there were no measurements taken, so we don't know the exact size or location of that paint or of the lacerations. And you can see the photograph on the right basically shows that after doing the test, a picture of the right arm was put next to it and basically eyeballed to say
Wow.
it's the same, well, it's only approximately the same area.
So I'm going to strike that. So next question.
Do you see any measurements, any tape measures, any laser measuring equipment, anything like that in that right photograph?
Nothing, no types of measurements whatsoever.
Can we go to the next slide, please?
$300,000 later.
This
Taxpayers
is
of the
on the
Commonwealth.
left,
Hope y'all
same
are happy.
video that we've seen several times, correct?
That's correct.
What are we looking at on the photograph on the right?
So on the right, it is the video of this test taken from the side of the vehicle.
Did you notice anything of note in this angle of the paint transfer test?
I did. I slowed this video down, and so as you can see, as it starts out, and you'll see the vehicle starts to slowly back. So there was no photographs showing the position of the arm in the back of the car. The video is from the side, and the top video, you can't tell where the arm is positioned against the tailgate. But whatever positions it's at, you can see as the car backs up here, look at the elbow and the upper arm. If the car backed directly in this direction, there would be no contact with that elbow or the upper arm. And remember, this test is to show where the paint would transfer and if that correlates to the lacerations.
You mean before you start the video, when you say there would be no contact with the elbow or the upper arm, you mean the biceps area and from the elbow up?
That's correct.
Is that based on the photograph on the right and the positioning of the surrogate?
Exactly. You can see right now, if the car just backed directly straight back, it would not contact the elbow or the upper arm.
Before you play the video, what did you note when the car from the angle to the right of the video on the right? What did you note as the car, just before the car starts to make contact with the surrogate? What did you note?
So in order to get that pattern on the arm, right as the car contacts the arm, the surrogate pushes his elbow forward, leans into the car against the light, and then rolls off.
Can you play that for us, please?
He turned his arm so it hits.
Did you see what you were describing in that video?
I did, and I can slow it down. So you can see, even at this point, as the car approaches, it would not contact the elbow or the biceps. So as it comes in, watch the elbow all of a sudden shoot in. Surrogate turns his arm in and then leans against
Garbage.
the light cover. So this is not indicative of someone standing there and having a car back into their arm. In order
At
to
all.
get that pattern of pain on the arm, someone would have to stand there, and as the car approached and contacted their arm, they would have to actually push their arm forward and lean into it to get that pain pattern.
We saw
Is
this
that,
in real time
in your
too.
view, proper scientific testing?
Sustained.
Let's move to the next slide, please. What is this?
And so this is that same event, and you can see I slowed it down even more just so you can see the actual movement of the elbow and the upper arm to get that pattern.
Thank you. Can we move to the next slide, please? This is slide 30. And let's go to 31. if we could.
Yeah, this is 31.
I'm sorry, 31. What conclusions or opinions did you reach or could you reach after reviewing the totality of the results of the paint transfer test?
The paint transfer test, all it can show is the approximate of where the arm was covered in paint as the surrogate jammed his elbow in and rolled against the taillight cover. So it tells us nothing about what may have actually occurred, how the lacerations were actually, or the abrasions were produced. It doesn't talk about the kinematics of the arm to actually cause those abrasions. All it does is just say, under this specific condition, if someone was to stand there and then shoot your elbow forward and lean in, you would get paint on this approximate part of your arm, because we don't even have any measurements for it. That's the only thing that test demonstrates, and that's the only test that was conducted to look at the interaction between the arm and the Lexus in this case.
Did you reach any opinions and conclusions regarding whether the physical evidence is consistent or inconsistent with the injuries to Mr. O'Keefe's right arm?
I did, yes.
And what are what's the basis?
The
for those
basis
opinions?
is looking at the number of laceration, or the number of
embarrassing,
abrasions
man.
on the arm, as well as the orientation and direction of those abrasions. And they don't correspond to how the arm would interact with the vehicle if it was at a right angle and struck by the rear of that vehicle.
And Dr. Russell backed this up too. If y'all remember, she talked about where the actual, we won't call it an insertion point, but where the actual bruises started and where they finished. And it's very consistent with that picture that we saw from Dr. Rentschler on his slide, showing that it appears that the damage went this way and it doesn't make sense.
Do you hold that opinion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, Doctor?
I do, yes, sir.
Can we move to the next slide, please?
Wow.
Actually, slide 33. If I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.